Hunt, fish, listen, repeat. Broadcasting from the Camp Grilling Studios, this is Sporting Journal Radio. Presented by OnX. Know where you stand with OnX.
That's a new personal best pike here.
Now here's your host, Brett Amundson.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. I'm Brett Amundson. Thanks for tuning in on this station right here on the Sporting Journal Radio Network by downloading the podcast wherever you get your favorite podcasts, or maybe you're watching this on YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, wherever. Thank you. Maybe Instagram. Thank you very much. We do appreciate it. That's Dan Amundson and David Eckhart right over there. How you doing, fellas?
Doing good.
Welcome to the show. We got a lot to get to. We're going to talk about spearing in North Dakota. Where did that idea come from? What impact might that have on the fisheries in North Dakota? Are you going to do it? Would you guys be interested in going to spear walleyes in North Dakota?
I would do it.
Have you ever done it? Sorry, Dan. What?
I don't know. I'd maybe give it a shot.
Yeah,
maybe
you ever done it in South Dakota?
I never have, no, but I would. It's piqued my interest.
Yeah, it's been legal over there. It'd be interesting to try something different. So we're going to talk to our old radio pal, Doug Leier from the North Dakota Game and Fish Department, to talk about not only spearing walleyes in North Dakota, where you can do it, when you can do it, but also what if you come across one of these snow geese or Canada geese or some waterfowl that might be suffering from this avian influenza that seems to be going around, what should you do about it? Should you report it? Doug will let us know coming up later in the show. We're also going to talk about the 500 show with Joe Henry from Lake of the Woods Tourism. What is the Rainy River doing? What does it look like right now? Is it going to be open for our party? We'll get a report from Joe Henry coming up a little bit later in the show. And then also Erik Osberg is going to join us from Otter Tail Lakes Country to talk about maple syrup milkshakes. Ever heard of a maple syrup milkshake?
What? Never have.
What do you think? What are you thinking over there?
Well,
no, we can't hear you, though.
They sound too sweet. I'll be honest with you.
It could be, but well, don't knock it till you try.
You're right. I'm giving my honest opinion here. This is an honesty radio show.
We also went and did some snow goose hunting, so we're going to talk about how we did, what we did, and David built a contraption that made our morning much, much easier, and we're going to find out what it is and find out why he built it and what it is coming up here in a little bit. First, though, Dan, who are our sponsors this week?
Yeah, our sponsors this week are OnX. Get the OnX Hunt app today. Know where you stand with OnX. Camp Grayling. Catch the Grand Slam lake trout, pike, grayling, and walleye. Fish Camp Grayling in Saskatchewan this summer. Otter Tail Lakes Country. Find your inner otter at ottertaillakescountry.com. Haybale Heights Campground and Resort. Book your summer getaway to Devil's Lake. Learn more at haybaleheights.com. Lake of the Woods Tourism. Lake of the Woods is the walleye capital. Plan a trip for this spring or summer to catch a bunch of walleyes at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. Prairie Sportsman, the new season is underway. Watch episodes on the Prairie Sportsman YouTube channel or check your TV guide for local air times. The Midwest Wild Sheep Foundation annual banquet is this weekend, March 25th and 26th. Learn more at midwestwildsheep.com. Then Mid-Migration Outfitters. Come hunt waterfowl out of heated 10-man pits and comfortable blinds. More info at midmigrationoutfitters.com.
This week on Prairie Sportsman, we tell the story of the Milan Beach Resort on Lac Parle Lake. They've been around for about 100 years. We talk about how when they built the resort back in 1928, the owner thought the lake would fill up with cabins. And when you think of a Minnesota lake in the summertime, what do you picture? A lot of times cabins all around the lake.
A lot of cabins, a lot of recreation on the water.
People wakeboarding with music way too loud. Jet skis.
Tubing.
You're hating life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Lac Parle is kind of nice because it doesn't have that. You know, it's got the big WMA and the refuge around it. But when you're building a resort with the thought that it was going to be filled with cabins, and then the DNR buys all. Well, the DNR didn't buy all the land. The state bought all the land, so no cabins around it. That's kind of that's an unexpected challenge when you own a resort. So we tell the story of the Milan Beach Resort on Prairie Sportsman this week.
This is Sporting Journal Radio.
Yes, thank you very much. And then next week, I go ice climbing on the show. So check it out. Find it on a PBS station near you, or check out the Prairie Sportsman YouTube channel. Guys, I don't know if you know it, but you witnessed a historic moment recently.
Oh.
Huh?
It was pretty historic.
What?
You witnessed Tiny's first snow goose retrieve.
Is that right?
And it may only be a big deal to me, but I don't care. But it was pretty awesome because I've been working with Tiny quite a bit, and she's still got some challenges to overcome, but she's coming a long ways. She's getting a little bit of work with actual feathers, with real birds, and at times, if it's too big, like she's a small dog, so at times, like a big Canada goose she struggles with and wants to kind of, I don't know if she's trying to pick it apart to eat it, to destroy it, or to make it lighter. I haven't quite figured that part out, but dogs like to, kind of chew on it. So she still has that mouthiness to her just a little bit.
Puppy.
A little bit of a puppy. So, but she's getting better. And she retrieved her first adult snow goose. And it was actually a beauty, white belly blue, nicest bird I think we shot. And, she got to retrieve it, and we got it on camera. Now, whoever ran this camera is terrible, obviously, at camera work and videography, but it was me. But
you tried your best.
So we hunted, and we shot some birds. It was a fun morning. It was a quick morning, and the beauty of it was we didn't set a whole pile of decoys up, but we ran 2 seed bags of full body decoys.
Yep. So about 150, 160.
And when you're running those realistic full bodies like that, you can get away sometimes with smaller spreads, especially when you're hunting juvies.
Yeah.
And there was actually more adults in that group that we ended up shooting this morning than I was expecting. But David, what you built, I think it just makes our lives so much easier.
Yeah, it's so nice for getting them big seed bags around.
So you built, basically it's a custom sled, and it can fit 2 full seed bags of full bodies on it.
Yep.
And that's what we did. Tell us about building that sled and why you ended up building it.
Well, I just transitioned over to full bodies last year and tried to move them around with an Otter sled. They're big, they're bulky, they're top heavy, and moving them around on an Otter sled, they tip over and spill all the time, which if you're hunting by yourself is not ideal.
Yeah, right.
So I got the idea to build this big sled that you could pull 1 bag on if it's real muddy, sloppy, wet, or you could pull 2 bags on if it's frozen or dry or wet enough to not get your trailer out. And I've used it a lot more for hunting than just pulling full body snows. I used it in North Dakota when it was muddy, and we got 6 guys gear and 30 dozen dive bombs. You can pull.
I'm guessing that's what we're seeing here, bags of dive bombs probably, or socks.
Those are all
socks?
just snow socks.
Those are you probably built the socks too, right? That's what we're seeing there. Did you build the bags too?
No, I bought the bags, but I built the majority of those socks in that picture.
Show that sled video again, Dan, because there's a couple of things I want to point out here that really, the beauty of it is you got the lip on the front, so that allows you to get up and over corn stalks or other obstacles in the field. But these handles that you're putting in, that allows you to stack those or stand up those 2 seed bags in there, and they can be a little wide so they can kind of stretch over the sides just a little bit. And then you'll actually throw straps on there.
I've got straps on front and back so they can't tip off, and they can't just completely tip over and spill half the bag.
What is that made out of?
That's all steel and 1/4-inch poly riveted on. So it's heavy, but it's light enough to where you can move it around pretty easy.
How heavy do you think it is?
It's probably in that 60 to 80 pound, maybe. I've never put it on a scale, but there's enough steel in it. I think if I were to build more, I'd do them out of aluminum.
That was my next question, is what would you do differently?
Yeah.
And, you talk about it being, a little bit heavier, but one guy can pick it up, lift it around, carry it around.
Yeah, you can move it around in the trailer, pull it around easy, especially if it's frozen or snow. It slides like a dream.
Well, we went out there, and it was funny, when I was riding on the back of the wheeler, which that wheeler had tracks, by the way, which is the other way.
Did you build the tracks?
Yeah.
I did not. I built the mud flaps.
That's the way to go.
Of course you did.
But so when you're riding on the back of the wheeler, and Tony was riding on the back on that sled, and then David was driving, and when you're on the back of a 4-wheeler and you're in a dusty situation, that dust is kicking up into your eyeballs all the time, and there's headlamps pointed at you. So most of the time, I just kind of put my head down and rode. And it was funny when it got light out, I didn't realize we even turned in the field. I was like, aren't the trucks? No, the trucks are over there. Oh, okay. So we got there in the dark, obviously, set everything up. And then this happened. There may be no better feeling than this right here. Big group of snow is coming in.
Do it!
Pop, 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 pop. So 4 guys, I don't know how big that flock was. We could probably pause it and try to count it, but 4 guys and we knocked 10 birds down out of that flock.
Yeah.
That's not bad. It helped that David had a 9. We had a 9 plus.
I got a +9
Plus
on my
9.
gun.
I think you covered for me because you all know how I shoot.
That's
I
fun.
get 12 or 13 shells,
Yeah.
3 inchers in there. So
That's beauty of spring snow is no plugs, e-collars. It's a fun time. So we watched 10 birds drop, and a couple of them were just crippled and made it up over the hill and ended up making it back to that slough. And Tony had Tilly and Tilly brought back, I think, 8 of the birds, and 2 of them had just kept on trucking and they had got out of sight for Tilly. So when we were picking up, I brought Tiny and Mika over there, and as we walked close to the slough, I could see one white bird swimming in that slough, and Mika saw it immediately and was on it, and it was diving on her and this and that. So I was like, I don't know if she's going to make it. So I sent Tiny after it, and when Tiny goes after that one, all of a sudden this blue goose comes out of the cattails, and then Tiny goes after that one. Mika went after the white one. It was the perfect situation when you have 2 dogs out there. He couldn't get any better. 2 crippled snow geese like that. And this is Tiny's first ever snow goose retrieve in the field, and it was diving on her. So in that video that you just saw right there, she went completely underwater. And to the point where I was going to start counting because she wasn't coming up right away. And this is where the goose makes its fatal mistake, and it heads for the cattails again, and it couldn't dive on her anymore. And she was able to get it. But it's a 4-minute video. That's how long it took for the 2 dogs to get these geese. And they kept diving on them. And there's nothing better than watching your dog dive underwater after one of these birds, in my opinion.
Say maybe we'll put that whole video on our Facebook page. So if you want to see that whole video, go check out our Facebook page and give us a like and a follow and all that fun jazz.
It was fun to watch. It was a good morning. We didn't, the people that watch these YouTube videos and you see 100 birds on the ground or something like that, those hunts happen few and far between. And anytime you hit double digits, especially with 4 shooters. Right. The other thing people don't realize when you shoot 100 snow geese, a lot of time it's at least 10 guns out there, maybe 10 to 15 guys, and it's insane. It's chaotic. 4 guys is a lot of fun, and knocking 10 birds out of one flock. It was good shooting. It was a good time. It was an easy set. Partly thanks to that sled.
A
lot of thanks.
I've been trying to think of a name for it the last year. I've been running it a year now, and I think I've settled on the one trip sled. You can fit everything in one trip.
One trip sled. All right. We'll work on that. We'll workshop it.
We'll crowdsource that.
But it was
Give us a suggestion.
Yeah. If you've got one, we're yours.
Yep. Comment below if you got an idea for a name of that sled from Eckhart Industries over there. But it was a lot of fun, and it was anytime you get to see dogs do their first things, it's a memorable experience.
Is that bird going on the wall?
It might. I got plenty of mounts behind me right now. I don't need more snow geese, but I have one at the taxidermist right now. I've got a speck in the freezer from last fall, and it looks like I got another snow in the freezer. So it's a good thing I'm single and I got a lot of wall space.
And a big house.
So, all right, we're going to get into fishing and talk about our 500 show, which is coming up in 2 weeks. So we got a big party on the Rainy River, and we'll talk more about that when we come back. Hey, it's Brett Amundsen from Sporting Journal Radio, and our 500th show is coming. To celebrate, we're going fishing for some of the biggest fish in the region, and you're invited. We're headed to Lake of the Woods April 4th through the 7th for a party at Riverbend Resort. We're also hosting a 2-day fishing tournament that's open to anyone fishing the Rainy River on April 5th and 6th. Download the Fish Donkey app and sign up today. The Sporting Journal Radio 500 Show Party, brought to you by Smith's Consumer Products, Yamaha's Right Waters, and Live Target. Find out more info at sportingjournalradio.com. Ice fishing season is here. This winter, plan a trip to Devils Lake, North Dakota. Not only will you have the chance to catch their legendary perch, but this year, Haybale Heights has been catching big walleye after big walleye. And they're doing it from a mobile, comfortable snow bear. No matter how cold it is outside, you're warm and toasty on the inside. Learn more and book a trip today at haybaleheights.com. That's haybaleheights.com. Well, here are some of the prizes, ladies and gentlemen. They are here. We are ready for the 500th show up at the Rainy River. We're going to celebrate the 500th show, Sporting Journal Radio, coming up. It's April 5th and 6th, and we got a big party at Riverbend Resort. We're going to do a 2-day fishing tournament on the Rainy River through the Fish Donkey app. So if you're going to come join us, you have to download that app, all right? There's all the details right there. We got prizes from Smith's Consumer Products. So we got this electric fillet knife right here that you saw. Also, this is really cool. This is an electric knife sharpener. You can put it in your kitchen. You can sharpen your fillet knives. You can sharpen your kitchen knives with them. Those are just a few of the prizes. We've got prizes from OnX. We've got prizes from Live Target. We've got prizes from Sporting Journal Radio. Also, some custom engraved DRC calls and more.
I don't believe I heard you say that.
Check it out at sportingjournalradio.com. Click on the SJR Rainy River 500 and sign up. It's $20 a person, so you don't have to stay at Riverbend. We're going to have a party there each night, Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night. And but if you're going to fish the river, it's open to anybody, but you just got to come pick up your prizes if you win. 3 largest walleye, 3 largest sturgeon at Riverbend Resort. And we'll be recording the show, so you can come join us on April 6th at Riverbend for the 500th show of Sporting Journal Radio. So all of us have been watching the Rainy River intently, just about on the hour every day, watching it open up. I've had phone calls and emails. Well, is the river going to be open? Is it going to be open? I'm pretty confident it is. Part of it is open already, and to get another report on the Rainy River and what's going on up at Lake of the Woods, we're going to bring on Joe Henry right now from Lake of the Woods Tourism. Joe, you ready for the party?
I'm ready. I'll tell you what, you talk about 3 parties in a row. It sounds like your old DJ days.
That's right. Hey, for 3 nights only, come join us at Riverbend Resort on the Rainy River. Yeah, we are going to
start it out. You had both hands full with products. I thought, holy smokes, when's the Popeil's Pocket Fisherman coming out?
We should get one of those. We're going to be giving away door prizes. So they got a happy hour from 4:30 to 5 every night in the bar. And then at 6 o'clock every night, we're going to be doing some door prizes and other giveaways. We should try to find a pocket fisherman.
I feel like I have one somewhere in Woodbury. Maybe I'll ask my mom to dig through my old dresser and
track it down. Yeah, Joe, it's hilarious. Like, we opened up this fishing tournament, of course, to anybody fishing the Rainy River at that time. People that are fishing Lake of the Woods, anglers all across the region. And the first people to book rooms at Riverbend, my parents and Dan's parents. So
I think that'll be the first time they ever listen to the show.
Yeah, well, they're our biggest fans.
I'm kidding. Quick tip for Danny. Before Mom goes looking for the Popeil Pocket Fisherman as dresser doors, maybe he should go through those dresser doors first.
We're looking forward to it, and we got some reports. I think Royal Dutchman shared a report here fairly recently about the river opening up, and we've got some pretty nice. I know the forecast changed a little bit, and things got a little bit cooler, but things are looking pretty good for us, aren't they, Joe?
They sure are, yeah. And Royal Dutchman's one of our resorts that's just east of Baudette that does a really nice job of putting out pretty consistent Facebook reports on the river and the open water progress. And others put them out there, but boy, Royal Dutchman's been consistent with it. That open water is approximately 12 or so miles to the east of Birchdale. And, things have been progressing quickly. When it was warm, and also through some of the different parts of the river, for a while there, things were progressing at about 3 miles a day. Now, it's not going to progress that quickly moving forward, I don't think, both with the weather and different stretches of the river. But the bottom line is things have been progressing really nicely. And you know what? Everybody's got different predictions, but a lot of people think that around April 1st, give or take, that Birchdale access will be close. And we say Birchdale, which is approximately 24 miles to the east of Baudette, but we talk about that Birchdale access just because that's the biggest, the first access to open up with open water that's really viable for larger boats to drop in, or any kind of boat to drop in. And it's also really good fishing around there. So when that happens, it's going to be game on. And then of course what we hope then is that open water continues to progress, because that way, once we get that second access open, that alleviates some of the boat and trailer traffic going into just one access. Nonetheless, get there. It's a little bit of a wait, but boy, it can be worth it. It can be. You can go out there and just catch some fish, normally going to catch a few good ones, or you could go there and really catch a number of fish of a lifetime. Personal best, the whole ball of wax. Brett, those big walleyes, for people that don't know, I mean, those big walleyes are coming out of Lake of the Woods, and they get constricted in this small river, really, the Rainy River, and they're going up to spawn. And it's a catch and release fishing only, but those fish are big, and they're hungry, and it can be game on.
And the sturgeon are big and hungry. I know some guys are just strictly going to target sturgeon up there, which, don't get me wrong, I like catching sturgeon, but I think you're crazy if you're not going to target some walleyes while you're up there on the Rainy River in the spring. And you brought up the fact that there could be a little bit of a wait at some of the landings. That's why a lot of people like to see the more landings open up. Of course, that's why you watch the landings open up, because there are people that'll bring bikes up there, because sometimes you're parking a little bit a ways away. But that's one of the reasons, too, why we're starting the tournament at 9 o'clock. So that'll give you a little bit of time to get on the water. If you got to wait a little bit, we recommend people get out there to the accesses early and take your time. It's a fun tournament for us. You don't have to rush. You don't, some guys get real impatient at the landings, whatever. It's going to be a nice, relaxing time. It's going to be a little cold. Last time I looked, I think they're talking about mid-40s for the highs on April 5th and 6th. Now, granted, that's, a couple weeks away, so that'll change, of course, by the time that we get there. But it might be a little brisk on the river, Joe.
You know what? It's spring, and you can have days that are 60 degrees. You can have days that's snowing out, and you got to wear your ice fishing gear. I mean, but that's part of it. That's part of the tradition, and that's what people talk about. They talk about, man, remember that time when we're whacking those big walleyes in the snow? And then there's other times they say, remember we had T-shirts on that one year?
Yeah.
I mean, that's all part of it. But just come prepared. Bring your ice fishing stuff. Bring overly warm gear. Dress in layers, and then have at her. The other thing I'll say is that by the time you hear those fish are up there and things are cranking, it's too late. You just have to go fishing, because things happen quick. You get different waves of walleye moving up and down that river. And the other thing I should mention too, Brett, is when you get out on that river fishing, have some patience at the access.
Yeah.
Don't park where you shouldn't park. Be cognizant, be courteous of others. Hey, if there's somebody else having a hard time getting their boat off the trailer, or their boat isn't starting because it's the first time in the water,
pull out their
give them a helping hand.
Oh,
yeah,
give them a hand. Oh,
that would
okay.
never. Yeah.
Of course not. Yeah, give them a hand.
Is that Danny in the background saying that stuff? Oh, Danny. Hey, just Danny, start making a list. First off, okay, let me get to my dresser before Mom does. Danny, it's all because I care about you.
Hey, David, have you fished the Rainy in the spring before?
No, I've never been up there in the spring.
This will be your first time.
First trip.
All right, so Joe, for somebody that has never been up there before, what should he be stocking up as far as tackle, and what kind of gear should he be bringing up right now?
Well, a couple of things. I would say this. First off, traditionally it's a jig bite, and with that water flowing, bigger jigs, it's stained water. The fish don't mind bigger jigs, so you're going to want to be able to touch the bottom. You want control of your jig, and that a bigger jig might be a half ounce, it might be 3/4 ounce. If you're in really some whipping water, it could be an ounce jig. And then the other thing I would say is that the spring is a time of the year that big plastics are really, really good. So put on a big plastic. I don't need it, but sometimes I even like tipping that big plastic with a shiner on top of it. Kind of a full meal deal. Put a little bit of scent on there, gives me a little confidence. You don't have to. And then some people will pitch shorelines and work that back to the boat, or cast out and just kind of work that current and let that jig sweep down current. Others will anchor up and just jig and let the fish come to them. And then yet others, what we'll do is we'll drift down real slow, controlled drift with the trolling motor going. And then what you do is you slide up current, almost so your jig's at about a 45-degree angle. You pull it forward, you let it drop back and thunk the bottom. You pull it forward, you let it drop back, and didn't make it to the bottom. Set that hook. I mean, it's just a fun bite. I'll tell you the other thing. If you're having a hard time locating fish, don't be afraid to put on a crankbait and typically troll upstream, because you can troll slower. And then, either use a crankbait so that it's achieving the proper depth. Otherwise, use a three-way rig, which is, a three-way swivel. One piece of line goes to your rod and reel. Another piece of line, maybe 6 feet, goes to a shallow diving crankbait. And then you have about a 2-foot dropper that goes to let's say a 3-ounce weight. And you can just pull that upstream, almost like a bottom bouncer, almost like the same speed. And I'll tell you, pulling cranks in this cold water can be extremely effective for big fish. Don't forget about that one. Or if those fish are spread out, Brett, or you're having a hard time finding them, I mean, put on some miles, find those fish. If they're congregated, then start jigging them. I mean, whatever.
Well, I bought boxes and boxes of crankbaits to bring up to Lake of the Woods the last 2 years, and I've used one so far, and I've always pulled spinners in the summer. Dan has, I think, 8 new tackle bags full of plastics.
It's not 8.
Getting prepared for
Not
this.
8. But that does bring me to a question about plastics, Joe. When you say a big plastic, what's a big plastic to you?
A little bit smaller than a plastic worm. I mean, maybe I better give you inches. Probably, I'd say a 4 to 6 inch plastic, probably a 4 to 5 inch plastic,
Sure.
ideally. And I like the brighter colors, so like the chartreuses and things like that. Sometimes pinks are good, pinks and whites.
Don't forget to sign up for the tournament. It's through the Fish Donkey app. So that's the other thing people have to remember is you have to download the app to your phone to enter the contest. So if you're in a boat with 5 guys and one guy downloads the app, he's the only one getting into the contest. So all those other guys need to download that app too and sign up through there. And then we'll have all the prizes at Riverbend, and we'll give them away on April 6th. So that Wednesday night when we record the podcast, we'll give the winners all their prizes. If you can't make it there that night, you can come the next day if you have to. But we want them picked up at Riverbend on April 7th. So, Joe, if people want to learn more about fishing the Rainy River this spring or thinking about a summer trip to Lake of the Woods, what should they do?
You know what? For real-time information, Facebook and Instagram. Hey, otherwise, check out our website, and that is lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
Northern Minnesota's Walleye Factory is a year-round world-class fishing destination. The perfect getaway this summer is just a short drive to Lake of the Woods. Fish Big Traverse Bay, the Rainy River, or visit the unique Northwest Angle. To catch big fish, you have to go where the big fish are. Plan your trip to Lake of the Woods at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. That's lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
852 million acres of public land, 147 million private properties.
All in the palm of your hand. The #1 hunting GPS app just got better. With hundreds of custom map layers, 3D and topographic maps, you can easily scout on the road or at home before you go. And now you can get important weather details, CWD detection, and even know what crops have been planted where. Get the most trusted hunting GPS app ever made. OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. Well, it's that transition time of the year where people aren't doing as much ice fishing if the ice is deteriorating everywhere, it seems like. So be very careful if you are out there. But minds are turning to snow goose hunting, turkey hunting, or maybe going up to the Rainy River and doing some fishing. But we're going to talk about some of the other outdoor opportunities that exist this time of year, because there are some chances for you to get outside and enjoy the outdoors, whether you're hunting, fishing, or doing something else. And we're going to talk to Erik Osberg right now from Otter Tail Lakes Country about some of those opportunities right now. Erik, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you, Brett?
I'm doing well, and I know you're excited. You're going to come up and join us for the big old 500 show party.
I'm going to do my best. I have to make sure that my family's calendar aligns, but I plan on being there at this point. Yes, sir.
You fished the Rainy River before, correct?
I did, and I'm not saying I'm an innovator or anything like that, but I like to think that I fished the Rainy before it was cool, like pre-Facebook, right? Like I used to be a sports anchor in Duluth. This is 20 years ago, okay? Pre-internet. Well, not pre-internet, but pre-Facebook anyways. And so I learned about the Rainy River when I was a sportscaster up in Duluth, and Buddy and I would go make videos for the television news station. And then that was awesome. And then I didn't go for a long time. And then last year was my first time back. I had been a couple other times, but I was filming, not fishing. And last year, Rain and Olson and I went up there, and we had ourselves an adventure. So yeah, I love fishing the Rainy River. It's that opportunity for the fish of a lifetime every day, and that's there's not many places in the world where that can happen. But Rainy River, when it's open, you can catch a fish of a lifetime.
And last time you left at 2 a.m?
we did. It had been the first time we had been there in a while, and Randon had never been, and so we left Ottertail County at 2 a.m. and we made it up there. We wanted to be the first ones there, right? Like we didn't want to be in a long line because long lines happen. And so we got there at like 5:47, and we were the only ones at the accident. so we learned that we didn't have to leave at 2 a.m. in the future. But we got out there, we got fishing. The first fish that we got was on a crankbait. That sounds different. That sounds odd, right? But you know how much I love crankbaits. And so we got our first fish on a crankbait. We had 0 minnows with us whatsoever. It was all artificials. We caught fish on plastics. We've caught fish on like ripping wraps or lipless cranks, rattled baits, whatever you want to call them. And yeah, I was able to connect with a 29.5.
Nice.
And it was a fun fish to catch. Brandon outfished me, but he got the most. I got the first, he got the most, and then I got the biggest. And we fished until dark. And then we drove back. So,
well, that puts you $1 up, I think, by my calculations.
Yeah, I was $1 up on the way home. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's awesome. I bet it was a fat fish too.
Oh, it was so plump. And as you know, Brett, I mean, there's a moment where you're not sure if it's a sturgeon or if it's a walleye, right? Like you think you have a bite or you get a bite, you set the hook, and it's just thunk, right? And they're river fish, or at least they're in there now, so there's current, and you're fighting the current and the fish, and this thing just stayed down and stayed down and stayed down, and I was like, it might be a sturgeon. I don't know. And then when we saw the fish, I think Brandon's words were, "Oh my God!" Like, when you can get a fishing guide and he, with a lot of enthusiasm, right? Like he's like, "Oh my God!" So and then we got it in the boat and took a couple pics real quick and let it go. But yeah, it's Rainy River in the spring. Here's the video of it. Rainy River in the spring is it's a special place. And the other thing that I would say about this trip is, if you'll notice in the background, there's no other boats around.
Yeah.
We and it wasn't really busy that day, so it's possible that there would have been boats if it was a Saturday or whatever. But we found an area. And it wasn't a special area. It was just some kind of humps in the bottom of the river, and it was. I'm not going to forget that. There's the world's worst high five. We did everything right except for the high five. That was not.
That's hilarious. Well, the other thing I noticed in the background, Eric, is the snow on the banks, and I just think it's way cool when you can fish open water out of your boat and there's snow on the banks. I mean, I don't want to fish when it's real cold and everything is freezing up, your line's freezing up. But when you can fish when there's snow on the banks, that's pretty neat.
It is. And I like, here's a tip. I don't know if it's a pro tip, but here's some unsolicited advice. If you have a buddy heater, okay, if you're going up to the Rainy River, and obviously safety first, don't get flame around gasoline, but if you have a buddy heater, bring it, and bring towels. Once your hands get wet, if it's cold, right? Like I've been on the Rainy River when it was that Saturday morning, it was 4 degrees below zero. And so I'm not saying you got to bring all your ice fishing gear, but think ahead. Nothing ruins a trip like you can't feel your hands anymore. Bring a buddy heater, bring towels, and you don't have to bring minnows. I mean, you can do it with plastics and cranks and blade baits and anything that moves or rattles, and don't be afraid to get away from the crowd and try something. Try something different. Try a new area.
Yeah. Well, and it's fun to hook into a sturgeon up there, especially when you're running light gear. If you don't mind, sometimes it might take an hour to land that sturgeon if you're running your walleye gear. I know a lot of guys will just cut their lines if they run into that. But I think it'd be fun, if you can battle a sturgeon like that. I think it's great. And I was pleasantly surprised when I learned about the sturgeon opportunities in Otter Tail County, Eric.
And me too, right? Like that, and that's why my job has been cool, is because there's been a lot of discovery for me. I didn't know sturgeon existed in Otter Tail County, and the DNR has been reintroducing those into the Red River watershed for 20 years. So every August they dump roughly 5,000 fingerlings in Otter Tail Lake, and they make their way to different places, upriver, downriver, wherever it may be, and those sturgeon are getting big. My personal best sturgeon on Otter Tail Lake is 45 inches. It's not a world class. It's not a Rainy River caliber, but there's 50 not yet, but there's 50 inch sturgeon swimming around Otter Tail Lake. And I don't know if you've ever been out there and heard them, but sturgeon jump, right? They jump a lot. So you'll be, there you go. Erik McQuaid, while he was fishing the NWT, I don't know if that was pre-fishing or not, but Erik McQuaid, it was pre-fishing. Yeah, if he was in the tournament, he probably would have cut his line. But they got a couple. They're all over, dude, and they're like when we're early in this. What we'll do pre-opener, what we'll do is we'll go out to Ottertail and we'll just put on the polarized sunglasses, and we'll just drive around and look for fish, right?
Yeah.
You'll see schools of walleye, but you will see a ton of sturgeon, and they're big and beautiful, and it's a sight to see. So,
with a lot of people practicing catch and release on those fish, which it's either by regulation or just by practice. A lot of people do that anyway. A lot of the big sturgeon you're seeing on the Rainy are products of that Clean Water Act back in 1972 when they cleaned up that river. So some of those fish are probably 50, 60, 70-ish years old, getting up into that 60 to 70 inch range. If they've been stocking them for the last 20 years down there in Ottertail, you see them in the next 20, 30 years, you're going to have some pretty nice fish down there.
Yeah, and they say it takes 20 to 25 years before they reach reproductive maturity, right? Mm-hmm. So whereas a walleye or a bluegill or whatever, they can start reproducing pretty early in their life. Sturgeon live to be 100 years old, right? So it takes them till they're 25 until they start making little sturgeons. So yeah, the future of sturgeon fishing, and there is a catch and release season, okay, on inland lakes, and it closes. You're gonna have to check your reg books. Don't quote me on this. It closes in April. But it reopens on June 16th. So you've got the walleye opener, the pike opener. You've got the muskie opener June 1st, and then you've got the sturgeon opener on June 16th. So you could come to Otter, and that's the cool thing. When I talk about sturgeon fishing in Ottertail County, it's awesome on the Rainy River, unless it's 10 degrees, right? Imagine it's 67 and sunny, and you're catching a sturgeon, and so it's a pretty good time of year to be targeting big fish anyways.
Erik, I need to ask you about something about a maple syrup milkshake. The heck is a maple syrup milkshake?
If you haven't had a maple syrup milkshake in your life, you haven't really lived. But you had mentioned that we're kind of in that transition time. Maple syrup is a big thing around here, or syrup, tapping trees and making your own syrup. There's not a lot of public opportunities to tap your own trees, but there is a public event in Vergas, Minnesota. Have you ever been to Vergas, Minnesota?
I sure have. Absolutely.
Yeah. They got the big, huge loon statue there. Mm-hmm. So Vergas, they have a maple syrup festival, and that's coming up on, I believe it's April 9th this year. Our website might be wrong, and that's okay. But I believe it is April 9th, Saturday, April 9th in 2022. The community of Vergas celebrates all things maple syrup. And so there's a pancake breakfast. There's a competition. People bring their locally produced maple syrup, and they have a competition. So you got to make, in years past, they've had live music. There's the maple syrup milkshake. You could burn some calories and then go reward yourself.
I don't know if I'd want to have the maple syrup milkshake before a 5K. Sounds like a good reward after a 5K.
That's funny.
But yeah, one of the cool things about Ottertail County is you've got all of these different festivals for all of these different communities. whether it's the Maple Syrup Festival or it's the Phelps Mill Festival or it's Vining has Watermelon Day. That's not until later in August. But for folks that are looking for a reason to visit or a reason to live here, once we get into May, there's probably 2 or 3 festivals every single weekend all summer long.
Well, and we can learn about those on the Otter Tail Lakes Country website, I'm assuming.
You can. We have a new events calendar. It's ottertaillakescountry.com. And we've got all sorts of events anything that's happening, you'll be able to find it on that website.
All right. So I say, April 9th, that's our 500th show. So we'll be at the Rainy River, but we're going to make some maple syrup milkshakes while we're fishing for walleyes on the river. How's that?
That sounds great.
We'll see. Bring some up, Eric. Bring some up from the fest.
I could bring some maple syrup up. I can bring some, if you provide the milk, Dan provides the shake, I'll bring the syrup. So.
I don't know if I can shake too well. Hopefully the bar's got some.
All right, Erik Osberg, if people want to learn more about Otter Tail Lakes Country, what should they do?
They can find their inner otter at ottertaillakescountry.com.
Did you know there are more than 1,000 lakes in Otter Tail County?
Yep, and I'm going to fish as many as I can. I'm an outdoorsy otter. Nothing beats a full day of fishing for me. The lakes of Otter Tail County give me plenty of options to lower my boat and snag the perfect catch. Not an outdoorsy otter? No problem. Otter Tail County has something for everyone. You just need to find your inner otter.
To find your inner otter, go to ottertaillakescountry.com. Keeping sheep on the mountain. That's the goal of the Wild Sheep Foundation, and you can help by attending the Midwest chapter of the Wild Sheep Foundation's annual banquet, March 25th and 26th at the Minneapolis Marriott Southwest in Minnetonka. This year, you could win your very own Dall sheep hunt in the Yukon. Plus, enjoy keynote speakers like conservationist Shane Mahoney, President and CEO of the Wild Sheep Foundation, Gray Thornton, and the British Columbia Backcountry Hunters and Anglers Chapter Liaison, Bill Hanlon. Plus, there'll be live and silent auctions and seminars put on by the Huntin' Fool. For more information, go to MidwestWildSheep.com. All right, so we need to talk about North Dakota because I miss spending time in North Dakota. I lived over there for 10, 12 years or so, did a lot of hunting and fishing over there, and moved back to Minnesota, and I enjoy where I live, of course, and Minnesota's got great outdoor opportunities, but there's something about the Dakotas, and man, I fell in love with North Dakota while I was there. And to talk about some of the big changes, well, it depends on who you talk to about how big these changes are, but I feel like it was pretty big news to talk about this. So I'm going to bring on Doug Leier right now from the North Dakota Game and Fish Department, our old radio pal. Doug, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Always good to visit with you, T-Bone. I always enjoy the conversation, man.
Doug, we are 2 weeks away from my 500th show, Sporting Journal Radio.
Wow. Gosh, the Kardashians wish they were you, man.
Yeah, I bet.
They've been married and divorced like 7 times in that.
It's the first time the Kardashians have ever come up on this show.
Hopefully the last.
Holy. And the reason I bring it up, though, Doug, is because this all spawned back in the day. The first outdoor radio show I did on the fan affiliate up in Fargo. You were a part of that. And then we did stuff on some of the other stations that I worked at up there. And then, of course, you've been on this show many times. So we're throwing a party coming up here. April 9th is the 500th Sporting Journal radio show, and we're going to throw a party up at Lake of the Woods. And I was just telling these guys, Dan and David are sitting over there, and I was just telling these guys, because we've been, chasing snows around a little bit and talking about maybe doing some trips over to the Dakotas a little bit. And I said, you know what? I don't even care if the snows are in Saskatchewan or if the snows are still in Missouri. We need to go hunt North Dakota a little bit because I miss being up there, Doug.
And I've always enjoyed visiting with you, and you're one of the guys that get it. Fortunately, in North Dakota, from your time, I think a couple of things have happened. Either the statute of limitations has worn out, or they forgot about some of the things that you've done. So I think you're welcome now. I think you're welcome. It's a combination of those two.
Oh, good. I can finally come back. Perfect.
Right.
Good.
Now,
well, When I talk about snow geese and I talk about North Dakota, from the reports I'm hearing, North Dakota's had birds. Saskatchewan's already seen some snow geese. Now that's your front edge, your lead edge adults, which are always kind of hard to hunt. It's really cool to see. I always encourage people to go watch that spring migration because it's fun to see, even if sometimes they're hard to hunt. But one thing that you've always said has always stuck with me when it comes to snows, and people get all worried about being too late when that lead edge rolls through. And you've always talked about people shooting snows on the last weekend of the season. So there's generally always some old, I should say, some young birds that stick around late into the season.
And you're spot on, because actually at the Sportsman Show at the Fargo Dome, I just ran into one of my friends that he's been doing that exact same thing, is not necessarily waiting until the last weekend of the season, but if he's had time, he's always gone out the last weekend of the season. And if you're willing to, fill up the truck with gas and spend some time out there,
not with these prices,
9 times out of 10, right? And that's the problem this year, quite frankly. But if you're willing to spend the money and spend the time, you're going to be able to find some birds. It might be in northern North Dakota, might be Devil's Lake, might be southern North Dakota, but there's going to be birds that are going to be straggling and coming on through on the backside.
Well, that's the name of the game, whether it's snow goose or Canada goose or mallards or even fishing for that matter. Being able to go out and scout and put some miles on and try to find whatever game you're chasing after, you have to be able to put your time in scouting.
I was actually earlier this week texting with a friend of mine in central North Dakota, and he was relaying how what's also changed so much. Our spring snow goose hunt in North Dakota, I think it started in 1999, and one of the good things for the sport of spring snow goose hunting, and one of the good things from the wildlife management point of view, is actually the electronics and the immediate communication, because you can find the birds so much quicker than you could back in 1999 with all of the cell phone applications and all of the communication tools available. And this is actually one of those hunts, a conservation order, that we want to get people to the birds. We want to get them hunting those birds, and which, kind of is a flip side from the fall, when you have people that want to try to hold back on information and want to try to save it for themselves. There's plenty of snow geese to go around, and I guess maybe this is where sharing comes into it. And right now is probably definitely in that peak window of getting out there and finding the birds. But by no stretch of the imagination, if you can't get out this weekend and you can't get out early next week, you're not going to miss the boat. I'm pretty confident. I've been wrong on a lot of things in my life, but you're not going to miss the boat.
You guys lost snow fast. What do you got on the ground up there now?
Man, you're telling me we lost. I would venture to say, like, eastern North Dakota had a lot more snow than central and western North Dakota, but I would venture even in the Red River Valley in eastern North Dakota, we probably lost 80 to 90% of our snow in about 10 to 12 days. It didn't turn on hot, but it turned on steady, and we shrunk the snowpack. The birds showed up, and prior to that, we were thinking in early March, there wasn't much snowpack in western North Dakota. There was a lot in eastern North Dakota. The first snow geese that showed up did kind of pop on the radar, maybe a little bit further central and west than we would have expected. But after that, the snow melted, the birds from southeastern, south central North Dakota, even some great reports from people that I trust in western Minnesota that were finding snow geese to hunt.
There's no birds in Minnesota. You shut your mouth.
They don't come through.
So when I lived in Fargo, Doug, now this is back in the days of the 100-year floods that were happening every other year. A quick thaw like that was a big worry. Now, obviously, there's some new infrastructure in place that's prepared for that type of scenario. Do they even worry about floods up there? Is everything done? Are they still working on that, or what's the situation?
They're still working on the diversion, and we still worry about floods, but it's actually been dry, and it's been drought that has been kind of the word that's been much more popular right now. We had a good snowpack. We had a good snow in eastern North Dakota, but the way the thaw has happened, it's been pretty steady. and pretty manageable. And obviously the infrastructure has been built up, but that we're still have places. If you're coming to North Dakota snow goose hunting, you're still going to find muddy roads. So we're going to still ask people to try to stay on the hard surfaces and try not to rut up the roads. But we probably aren't going to have the washed out culverts and the washed out bridges like we have in some high volume water years. So that's the good news. The bad news is the high fuel prices and the way the birds are going to be spread out all over the place. But those are the cards that we're playing. That's the hand that we were dealt.
Man, I watched a truck drive into one of those washed out culverts one time, and luckily the kid was okay, but just had no idea. And all of a sudden there was just no more road.
They just
and the front end of the truck dropped in, and it caught on the other side of the road, and he was just sitting there dangling as 4 feet below him, just rushing water, just washed the road right out. So gets a little wild. How's the electronic posting been going over there?
We actually just started sign up number 2, and that goes through July 1st of this year. And all things considered, when you realize that electronic posting in North Dakota, we were the first state in the United States, and this was really something that was probably put into motion in a matter of 3 to 6 months. So all the reports that we're hearing from the landowners, I don't want to say all, most of the reports that we hear from landowners, that we're hearing from hunters, have been pretty positive. No significant changes this year. We kind of take things in baby steps, but we didn't have any real big, huge red lights that came on that said, whoa, this didn't work. And I would actually even paint myself a little bit pleasantly surprised how well it's going so far.
Well, you can read more about it at sportingjournalradio.com. If you're going to end up going to North Dakota, you want to make sure you are aware of the electronic posting rules in North Dakota, and we've got it laid out there. Oh, look, we even did an interview with this guy right here back when it all was announced. From Lois Hills or Lois Bluffs, what do they call it?
Lois Bluffs.
Lois Bluffs, the old Squaw Creek in Missouri, to reports in Nebraska, South Dakota, and now North Dakota. I heard from a guy about seeing a snow goose in town. He was in town, and there was a snow goose just laying, I think it was in somebody's yard. So he walked up to it like, what the heck, and the thing was alive. Let him walk right up to it. He picked it up and he kind of tossed it in the air to, try to set it free or whatever. And it barely flew, and it landed on the other side of the road and laid right back down. So obviously this avian flu, this bird flu, is a serious thing. From the Game and Fish Department's perspective, how do you handle bird flu or reports of bird flu, or what are you telling hunters to be aware of?
First and foremost, we really appreciate the eyes and the ears of the hunters that are out there, because anybody that hunts knows how widespread birds and bird migration is. And when you have a limited staff, to be out there and try to monitor everything, we so depend on the eyes and the ears of the hunters. So, a situation like this with a goose that's acting abnormally, whether it's in Nebraska, South Dakota, or North Dakota, biologists want to hear about it and know about it. Odds are, if there's one bird, there's going to be more than that. So when you have multiple birds that are acting abnormally, then we need to know about. So what you have is a kind of like a playbook where you get the report, you investigate. If you can get a sample of that bird, then that gets sent into a lab. We live in a world where we're in a click world where you expect to have, results at the snap of a finger. Our responsibility is to try to make sure that what we're putting out there is consistent and accurate information. So until we actually get test results back, we're not going to, we may suspect it's avian influenza, but where we're sitting right now, and, this speaks to the same protocol that biologists are going to have, whether it's in South Dakota, Minnesota, North Dakota, is when you see multiples of dead birds. Just seeing one dead bird isn't a big red flag. One bird acting strange like that goose is, that's something that we'd appreciate a phone call on. But then when you start to see multiples of dead birds, you see 6, 10, a dozen, you see more than a dozen dead birds in a location, then please, by all means, whether it's contacting North Dakota Game and Fish, South Dakota Game Fish Parks, Minnesota DNR, wherever you're at, we do need to know about it. Don't just think, well, somebody else probably saw it, somebody else can report it. Don't think, well, it's not that big of a deal. We do want to get those reports in. I've heard secondhand of reports that have been coming in, and unfortunately, I'm thinking moving forward, we're going to probably hear even more of that.
Yeah, well, supposedly there isn't harm to humans, but I'll tell you what, if I found one of those sick birds, I wouldn't eat it. And they do recommend you wear gloves if you do handle one of those birds. But
yeah, I mean, absolutely. The world has changed. You going back into the day of how you used to function. You can still do that, but it's not recommended. So as little contact from your skin to whether it's meat or blood or anything raw, by all means, try to make sure that you're wearing gloves. And then when you're cooking, make sure you're getting meat up to 165 degrees. And I guess I'm not thinking there's many people out there that are gonna eat the raw gizzard of a snow goose. But hey, I'll be the first to tell you, don't do that.
Dan, I'll give you $5 American to eat the next.
You got 10, you got a deal.
What?
Yeah.
Now here comes on TikTok. The Snow Goose Gizzard Challenge.
Gross.
If it gets us famous, it's all for the views.
That's right.
Death
do it for the show.
Ratings,
hey,
right?
Death equals ratings, as I always say.
Take one for the team.
All right. The whole point of this, obviously, I love talking snow, so we could do it all day, Doug. But I want to talk about spearing walleyes in North Dakota because this came out last week, and we were all a bit surprised by it. Didn't even know it was a possibility in North Dakota, Doug.
Well, you probably didn't think the Vikings would get Zadarius Smith either, and the Twins going to get Carlos Correa, right?
That Marc-Andre Fleury to the Y.
Yeah, that's right.
There you go.
True.
Here's one thing because I know we're hearing from a lot of people going, wow, spearing walleye. Again, on paper, it might sound a little bit bigger than reality. So it's going to be legal in North Dakota on the Missouri River system, on Devil's Lake, and on Stump Lake. So Sakakawea, Oahe, Devil's Lake, and Stump Lake. If you've speared fish, you're familiar with the northern pike attacking the decoy. If you've speared fish, you've probably seen a rogue walleye maybe come drifting through. I haven't speared as much as a lot of people. I've speared enough to see a walleye drift through, maybe take a look, and move on. I just, as a spearer, I just don't know how much of an impact it's really going to have. It's nice to allow it. In North Dakota, here's where some of the statistics and the numbers probably tell a little bit more of the truth, is that we get 3,000 to 4,000 registered spears in North Dakota, 3,000 to 4,000 in the state. We have in North Dakota 215,000 licensed hook and line anglers. So that's like, 2-3%. So it's not a huge number of people that spear. And the reality, maybe somebody's going to come up with a way to spear walleye. Maybe they already have. I guess I should couch it just a little bit. Maybe there have been people that have been studying, new means of luring in walleyes. Maybe that exists. There's probably some rabbit hole on YouTube on it. But
if there isn't, there will be.
Yeah.
Right. No, and that's why I should probably couch it just a little bit. But
new idea for our YouTube channel, Dan. Spearing walleye tips. Okay.
Right after you eat the snow goose gizzard. Right after you eat the snow goose gizzard. But
yeah.
So when you look at that, we're going to allow it legally coming up this winter. One thing that we've done with spearing in North Dakota, we didn't start legal spearing probably around the same time we started the spring snow goose hunt, right around the turn of the century, around 2000. We started off really, really limited, and we just grew. We started off with a limited number of lakes. We grew that. So it was just something from a resource standpoint where if we can allow somebody to spear a walleye, that's probably better than that same walleye dying in winter kill from lack of dissolved oxygen and washing up on shore. So utilizing the resource is something that we've always tried to look at and actually drift more towards utilizing that resource and allowing the the anglers, and same thing with hunting. We've always been strong advocates of saying, how can we utilize the resource versus that resource just ends up dying and not being consumed.
Well, I'm curious to see how people are going to react to it and how many people are actually going to do it, because it's not going to be easy. I know there are guys that do it in South Dakota. We had Paul Steffen, who took the Black Rifle Coffee guys out spearing walleyes in South Dakota last year, the year before. I can't remember. And they speared a couple of fish. So I've always thought it was interesting. In fact, I was at Paul Steffen's one time by Pier there, and we were doing, I think it was a South Dakota governor's pheasant hunt or something. And I walked into their lodge, and there were some really nice walleyes up on the wall. I'm like, wow, that's not bad, And he goes, yep, that one was speared, that one was speared, that one was speared. I'm like, well, that's the first I'd heard of it. And I'm like, what? Like, is that legal? Like, what's going on here? And and then when we bow fish, rough fish over here, a lot of times in the dark at night, you'll see walleyes, and it's like, gosh, it'd be kind of cool.
Eyes glowing.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially if there's a pot of walleyes, you'll just see all these eyeballs, there's just massive eyeballs off, in the shallows. And be like, man, it'd be kind of cool to pick out some nice eater walleyes, because carp you always end up, it's fun to bow fish, but then you always have to deal with these carp afterwards. And of course, that's where you end up having kids dump them in the ditch or whatever. But if you could shoot something edible that you'd want to, you can eat carp, but it would be nice to shoot a couple of nice walleyes and then actually, have the enjoyment of the activity and also the table fare at the same time. So I'm curious to see how it's going to turn out. And obviously it's not easy. I think the biggest worry that you have is people being able to pick out the right size to spear. So do you know what the regulations surrounding, is it only going to be in the winter time? Is there some sort of size restriction on it?
No size restriction. So again, you don't have to worry about a protected slot. You don't have to try to invent spear and release.
I don't think that would work very good.
That's the tough part.
No.
So is it
that's one thing that, again, that in North Dakota that we really try to do is try to reduce some of the friction and the consternation. I just don't understand. I've spearfished and, looking down that spearing hole, trying to judge the size of something is not something that I want to try to, push spears into turning, a legal activity and turning somebody into a game violator unintentionally.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Doug. Well, what else? Anything else new in North Dakota? Anything? Or David, did you have a question?
So is it just walleyes, or is it? I know when South Dakota changed it to walleyes in some of the northeast region, I think it's perch too.
Oh, really?
Or all game fish on certain lakes. So I think, trying to spear a crappie would be pretty hard.
Well, and you can, in South Dakota, I think on Oahe, you can actually spear or bowfish salmon. I think you can take 5 salmon a day there. And there's actually a lake where all game fish are open to bow fishing, and there's muskies in that lake.
Oh.
So I remember asking the guy from Game Fish and Parks, I'm like, so does this mean, if I'm reading this right, I'm not saying I'm going to go do it, but if I'm reading this right, could somebody legally shoot a muskie? He goes, well,
I don't think it's all game fish, but
yeah, he said, honestly, we haven't seen a muskie in there in about 25 years, but they were stocked in there at one point, so there could be one in there. So they have to list it in the regs. But yeah, what is it? Just walleyes then in North Dakota?
So obviously, it's been northern pike. It's now walleye, and it includes non-game fish.
Like your rough fish,
right? Right, but it brings up a point. Like we have Xander, which is a European walleye. I'm just questioning myself, going, well, because one of the places that people spearfish has Xander in it, but that actually check that, because we are only allowing the walleye on Devil's Lake, Sakakawea, Oahe, the Missouri River system, and Stump Lake. So I had to hold myself back here because it's not walleye that's going to be included in many of the other waters. But
I want to do a story about the Xander up there so bad, but I know it's kind of it's a secret, but it's not a secret, but it's a secret. And, there's already enough tension on it, but the fact that there's Xander in North Dakota, I think is wild. And
it is.
It would be cool to talk a little bit more about that. But you know what? We'll save that for another day. Doug Leier, where can people, a lot of this stuff is on our website, sportingjournalradio.com, but if people want to find out more about what's going on there in North Dakota regarding the outdoors, what should they do?
Yeah, I'd encourage people to go to the Game and Fish Department website, and within that you'll find links to our YouTube channel, our Instagram, and our Game and Fish Department Facebook page. If you want to stay up to date, we do actually have like text alerts that'll notify you of the spring turkey application deadline, the big three moose elk and bighorn sheep. So we try to we're not still stuck on MySpace. We're moving forward slowly but surely.
Do you have your TikTok account, Doug?
No. We're saving that for you and your Snow Goose Gizzard Challenge.
Very good.
It's all yours. It's yours. It's all yours. You can have it.
All right. Doug Leier, thanks for the time today on the show. Good talking to you again, man.
Yeah, and congratulations on 500 shows. I'm very, in all sincerity and professionally, Brett, it's been so much fun over the course of time from Fargo to where you're at now to be a guest and to stay connected and see what you're doing, because you're such a strong advocate, not just for the hunting and fishing, but you're one of those guys, and the rest of your crew, your entire crew, brings in the conservation and the importance of
those guys
some
don't
of those
care about
components.
any of that stuff.
Kill them all. Every single one of them. Spear every walleye.
I appreciate that, Dougie. Yeah, and that is one thing that we really try to do. Same with the TV show is we try to showcase the hunting and fishing and outdoor opportunities, and then the science and management behind them and why those decisions are the way they are, and promote sustainability, because in some form or another, in some place, there's somebody attacking the way we like to live our lives in the outdoors, and we can't let them win. So we have to constantly promote.
There's a reason why you're at 500 shows, man. You're a survivor. Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much, Doug Leier, North Dakota Game and Fish Department. Thanks again.
Take care. Thank you.
Sporting Journal Radio is a division of Macaba LLC. If you've got a question, comment, or story idea for us, send us an email. Go to sportingjournalradio.com. While you're there, you can learn how to advertise on the show and visit our store for hats, hoodies, coffee mugs, and more. Go to sportingjournalradio.com.